That guitar player is Iain McNally, and he is today's guest on Guitar Players in Isolation. If you're returning to my channel, thanks so much for the support and hope you've subscribed. If this is the first video you're seeing on my channel, I hope you like it. I've been fortunate enough to be able to interview guys like Steve Petico, Wendell Ferguson, Paul Chapman, and many others. So check out my page for other amazing interviews, and there's also lots of guitar instructional type of videos for country style guitar. So let's get into this interview with Iain. Hey Iain, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Illustrious company.
Hey, well, you were highly recommended. I can't remember, but somebody recommended you.
Okay. Well, whoever did, thank you.
So Iain, let's just start with what you've been doing. We'll get into what you're doing kind of now, but what you were doing just before this whole lockdown. You've had two great house gigs for a number of years on Thursday and Sunday with your band Soul Tripper and kind of a jam with friends type of thing. I think you call it Iain and Friends. So yeah, tell us about that.
Well, that's great. That happens every Thursday and hopefully keeps going when this is all over. Yeah, every Thursday it's the band Soul Tripper, drummer Rick Roach, Tony Rosick on keyboards. Then we have two singers, and Dane and Jude. And yeah, it's a fun time because you never know what you're going to get. We have it's a different kind of jam. It's in Woodstock, and we get an Egyptian guy that brings an Egyptian drum, so we kind of get pseudo Arabic there for a bit, and then the usual kind of people getting up to sing songs. So you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of cool.
Woodstock, yeah. So it must have been Fred Lewis that recommended you.
Fred.
Because he's in Woodstock.
I love it. Yeah.
And how long has that been going on for?
That's been going on for 5 years now. So it's great. It's just been solid, and we just keep doing it. And me, Tony, and Rick, we just know each other so well musically, so it's never an issue. And Tony's playing left-hand bass and playing keys and singing, and, he's unbelievable. He's listening to the tune, then as he's playing the one tune, and the next jammer up and stuff. It's kind of crazy.
So from the short research I've done on you, Iain, because we really haven't known each other before we kind of hooked up to do this, I've noticed you're a real diverse player, many different styles. So are you bringing all those styles into this gig?
Well, we'll do everything from jazz standards to reggae to metal to country. To, like I said, Arabic craziness to, whatever they want to do, we'll attempt it.
What club is that at?
It's called Riffs Music Lounge.
Okay, right, yeah.
Down Woodstock, yeah.
I believe I reached out to them for my band, but we've never played there. It's been years.
I'm putting a good word.
Yeah, well, the word may not mean much right now, but
Not much at the moment. No, that's true.
So let's talk about the gig you're doing on the Sundays. It's a little bit different than a jam, but you do have different people that come out, right?
It is a jam in a way. Is that I it's called Iain and Friends. So I bring in a singer-songwriter, a different one each week, and so it's just me interacting with them. So we don't rehearse. I just okay. I mean, we can talk about tunes, what tunes you want to play and stuff, but it's good for the audience because people that want to kind of come see me, they see me with someone new. But then the artists that I bring in, they bring their own following, so it's really cool.
Who are some of the guests that you've brought up in the last little while?
The Soul Brothers, Jeff and Chris Dahl, Rebecca Janelle, Stacy Zegers, Chris Stray, Rob Cromwell, Joshua Nathaniel. Yeah, just, Jaeger from Stratford.
changes it up every week, right?
Oh, exactly. So people come and it's always different,
Yeah, that's a great model. Always having somebody fresh with you brings in new people. Actually, that's where I've discovered a lot of the guests I've had on this program was an event that's done a little further up north for me in Newmarket by Lou Moore at Colonel Mustard's, and he has a Thursday gig, and he brings a guest player. Most of the time, they're guitar players, but I think that's really where I first learned because he's been doing this 10, maybe 20 years now. It's where I first learned about guys like Steve Petico, Wendell Ferguson, and Paul Chapman, and a host of others. So it's a great model. So I hope it gets back on stream for you.
It's good. Just come and see me, and it's in the town I live in, Ingersoll. So that's great.
Well, I know the other thing that keeps you really busy, and you can see from the background there, is producing. You've been doing that for maybe close to 20 years, I believe, and you got into it through some guitar sessions. And you've had quite a few successes. So let's dive a little bit into your work on the production side.
Well, yeah, I got into it really because I was doing a lot of sessions a long time ago at Cedar Tree in Kitchener with Rick Hutt. And Rick was a big teacher for me. He knew that I liked, I was interested in producing. So he'd spend the time kind of going, this is what a compressor does. Here, you do it. So it goes right, or this is what I'm doing. Okay, let's splice the tape. Let's back in the days of 2-inch tape. So he was pretty cool that way. He was a good teacher. So just from there, kind of started with a 4-track and worked my way up because then an 8-track and so on. So it's studio just grows. It just gets out of control easily. And then I guess my first kind of good, like not good, but lucrative producing gig was after touring, come back and an artist that I had done some 8-track demos with got signed to Warner. So we ended up having to make some records, and we got to go to some amazing studios, the Studio in Montreal and Metalworks and all those kind of places, which was pretty awesome.
That was Catherine Durand out of Quebec, right?
Catherine Durand, yeah. So that was an interesting thing. The story there was kind of funny, and the moral is never say no, always say yes, because Catherine is the niece of my parents' old neighbor. Ooh. So when I was on the road, I was going to we were stopping in Montreal. So the aunt said, "You've got to look up my niece. Just call her and say, hey, you know me, and see what happens." So so that's what I did. I got to Montreal, said, "You don't know me, but I'm in town, and your aunt said to call you, and let's hang out." So she goes, "Okay, let's go." So she came pick me up, and she it was funny. It's a small world. She ended up being a camera person at Musique Plus, which is actually where we were going to do some filming. So she was actually filming us, the French Much Music, and so every time we go to Montreal, we'd hang out, and she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a singer-songwriter, and here's some stuff I'm working on." I was like, "Awesome. Well, you should come to Toronto. We'll make a little demo and get those going." And then we finished those, and then a friend of mine worked at Warner. She asked if she could take them in. She heard them, said, "Can I take these in?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess. Why not?" And then we had a little bidding war between a couple of labels, and before I knew it, she got signed, and it was like, okay, this is real.
So you mentioned you did some recording up at the famous Le Studio, but where was that where the bulk of it was done, or where was the bulk of the recording done for that record?
Well, we did most of it in Toronto at my place, and then we do one record we did drums at Metalworks, and the other one we did at Morin Heights, the Le Studio where Rush did all their stuff, and that was awesome because it's also where the Police. They had the piano where Every Breath You Take, the piano on that was done. It was like, it was just awesome studios.
Yeah, I certainly know about all the Rush and the April Wine videos, the window and the lake behind it. Awesome stuff. But I had no idea that the Police, they did Every Breath You Take up there. That's
Yeah, they did Synchronicity or something, one of those there, yeah. Yeah.
No.
Bowie was there, everyone was there.
So in the mid-'90s, there was kind of a dancey, rappy kind of thing called, the band was called Bass is Bass, and they, you know, the video was always on Much Music, and you played the solo at the end of that song, and I think that helped launch your career.
You know, after I went to Humber, you know, like a lot of musicians did, and then after that, I kind of got into the funk scene in Toronto at that time, and a lot of funk and a lot of reggae. And out of that, you know, kind of hung out with those guys, and they got signed, and all of a sudden they were making records. Said, "Hey, Iain, come and play on it." So that was really cool. I think I used that guitar.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And yeah, that led to a lot of things, because that solo seemed to get me a lot of other jobs, which was really cool.
So you did this recording. You got on that song "I Cry," which got a lot of airplay, and a lot of people got to see it and hear it. And I think Amanda Marshall heard that, and then you got going with her for a number of years.
Yeah, she had heard that song. That's another. You never know what's going to happen. What happened with Amanda was that she had a guitar player already, and I don't really know the whole story, but 2 days before her showcase at the Palais Royal, the guy quit or he got fired. So I got a call from a bunch of people. Mark Kelso, I was in Mark's band at one point, so he recommended me. Amanda knew about the I Cry tune. I played in a bar mitzvah band with the bass player. So it was all, and I was also, at the time, also signed to Sony with my own band with Randy Cook called the Daddies of Eden. Oh. So it was all, the record company recommended me. Rob did. Amanda already knew that song. Mark Kelso. So it was all kind of like meant to be.
Wow.
So, but it was pretty much, you know, like, okay, we've got a showcase, you know, in 2 days, and you've got a rehearsal tomorrow. So here are the tunes, get to work. So it worked out good.
Randy Cook's a drummer, right?
Randy Cook is a drummer. He's a hell of a drummer. Yeah.
I think he played a lot with Sil Simone back then.
He does play a lot with Sil. Yeah.
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 All these things are tying in together.
Cool, eh?
So I'm just trying to get the timing of this. It sounds like you hooked up with Amanda just as things really started to blast off for her when that, you know, the album with Birmingham came out. Is that right, or were you there before?
That was the showcase for that record. So she recorded the album in LA, and then she had this big album release party at the Palais Royal down on Lake Ontario there at Lakeshore. And hey, hey, hey. She flew up all the executives, you know, from New York and stuff, and it was a big soiree, so it was pretty intense.
So a real coincidence was I follow Leland Sklar on YouTube, and I guess he just started hopping on YouTube during this whole COVID thing, because I think he got kicked off Facebook. Anyway, it's just him sitting on a chair, and he plays along with, you know, countless recordings he's done. He spent a lot of time doing all that, playing along with all the Phil Collins stuff and some James Taylor. And then, you know, we got introduced, so we were kind of messaging back and forth. And then the next night I noticed that Leland starts playing Amanda Marshall's Birmingham, and he's doing the bass. And I had no idea it was him on that recording, but incredible coincidence. So he notes the recording that was done in L.A., that it was him on bass, Kenny Aronoff on drums, and Tim Pierce on guitar. It was just an incredible L.A. session.
I know, isn't that wild? Yeah, it was that's a great lineup, you know.
Those were the days when you label threw some money behind you, I guess, eh?
That's right. I know, Lee Sklar. That Billy Cobham tune where he plays the bass line, that's just the best. I think it's Stratus. It's just so good.
So that's a huge compliment to your ability back then, because, like, you know, it was like the top players on this album, and, you know, you got the guitar chair.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, those records are so well made, you know. Yeah. and I got to say, Amanda was cool, though. She gave me a lot of leeway. She let me kind of do my own thing. I didn't have to. I was the one in the band that could kind of float above. I mean, there were parts you had to mark, obviously, but a lot of it, she was really free. Just do what you do. It's cool. Just.
So tell us about your experience doing the David Letterman show. That the cameraman really liked you.
Can you blame the camera, really? I was doing my Blue Steel.
Yeah, someday soon. Yeah, baby, someday soon. Someday soon again, baby. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, my, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was a dream. Amanda was on the bus and she said, "Oh, guess what? We're doing the Letterman show, but we're playing with the band, so you get to go and you get to go." So it's like, oh, right on, awesome. And for me, it's the stage where the Beatles played, right? It's the Ed Sullivan, where you're on that stage. So that was number one. Next is you're playing, with Will Lee, and I'm a big Brecker Brothers fan, so to play with Will Lee was a massive thrill, and just that was, and I grew up watching it, so it was just awesome.
The video is probably like Anton Fig on drums, and
it was Anton Fig, yeah, and Felicia, and yeah, it was the whole band. It was great. Yeah. So and it was a cool thing. You play with the band, you kind of have rehearsal. Then downstairs they have a whole console and they recorded it, and an SSL. And then Amanda would go, okay, I want more of this, less of this, for the TV mix, and then it's all set. And then for the show, it's already good to go, and you go and play it.
I mean, that must have been a blast at the time for you. But just given the height of her success at the time, there must have been some other TV appearances. Which ones do you recall?
Oh yeah, we did all those things. The funniest one for me was the Rosie show, because we did it once. We did it twice, actually. The second time was because Elton John had gone on the show and said that he loved that record. He loved Amanda's record. So that literally kept us working for an extra year and a half.
wow.
It was wild. So that was, thanks, Elton. You rock. So that was pretty good. But the funny thing on the Rosie was she was having this. I guess someone said that she was said that she was the least kissable person, or something. So Listerine, the competitor, said, "We think you're very kissable, Rosie. So every time you kiss someone, we're giving $1,000 to charity." So Mike Myers comes out, gives her a kiss, cha-ching. So anyway, we played on that show, and then afterwards she goes, "Give me a kiss, Ian." So then I kissed for $1,000. I kissed Rosie for $1,000.
So did you tour all across North America, U.S., Canada? Did you go into Europe or elsewhere? Tell us about it. It's so exciting talking to some guy who's played these kind of big shows.
We toured opening for Mellencamp. I mean, opening gigs are the best because, I watched Sills. Exactly like Sil said. It's 45 minutes. You're done. It's it's barely 10 o'clock or so, and you're out the door. You're in whatever town you're in. You're checking it out. It's great. So had some good times there. But yeah, we opened for Tears for Fears, Tom Cochrane in Canada, Mellencamp. But we went all over. We went to Australia and Japan and all over Europe. Did those festivals in Europe, which was pretty cool. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
How many years was that for you in total?
Well, I'd say over 3 years.
Wow.
And it'd be like, you go out for 6 weeks, you're home for 2 days, do laundry, go out again for a month, come back for a week, go again, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I recall when she was really young. Well, when I was young too. I looked her up. I think she's a year younger than me. So she was just a kid, but she was opening up for Jeff Healey, and it was just like, wow, what an incredible voice. And she just had this Janis Joplin kind of a thing about her with the energy.
Well, yeah, because her management was Tom Stephen, who was Healy's
Okay.
drummer. Yeah, so that's how that all connected. The Grossman scene and all that.
So let's touch base on the gear, if you recall what you were using when you were playing, big arena type of shows.
It was awesome, believe me, because actually I started off with a smaller rig, and then the front of house guy, Ben Richardson, who was also the tour manager, who's now the bass player in Big Sugar, he said, "You need bigger gear, man. Like, we're playing bigger stages now, so you need good, ramp it up." So I did. So I had at the end there, I had 2 Marshall stacks and a Mesa Boogie Triaxis and a 200 watt power amp. So it was 100 watts a side. So when you played those chords, it was just like thunder. It was awesome. So Amanda would just come over and kind of get scared of the volume on my side and then go back over there. So it was always some of it stuff.
Amps were on stage?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was great. I'm an old school, so I like those amps behind me. I don't want them in my monitor too much. I want them behind me. Just,
So you're telling me you showed up on the first leg of the tour with your bar mitzvah rig?
Well, not quite that. It wasn't combo, but at that time I had Mesa Boogie 1x12s.
Okay.
That kind of scene, just running in stereo and a bit of rack, but not the volume they needed for the arenas. So
At that time, the 90s, everybody had the rack stuff.
not quite as good as Sill's, I got to say. Mine was pretty streamlined. I just had the Triaxis, the Boogie, and Boogie preamp or power amp, and then pretty much a Quadriver, which was the effects unit. And then I ran a MIDI foot switch and a volume pedal, and that was pretty much it.
Cool.
So all my things were just MIDI patches, which was cool.
What kind of guitars were you using mostly then?
I was using those, I don't know if you can see them, 2 Strats. They were just Frankenstein Strats.
Yeah.
That they, a Squire necks that I really liked, and then put better wood, alder bodies on them, I think, and better parts. But I like the whammy system on those, because if you break a string, the whole guitar stays in tune, is down a semitone, but it's so you can finish the tune. It's not like a Floyd Rose where it's just like, oh, it's over. You could actually get through it. So that was pretty cool.
Before we move on with gear and stuff, when we were chatting the other day, you were mentioning to me you had some funny stories about Richard Branson, and I think even a story about a run-in with Cheap Trick. So share that with us.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, that's when you're touring like that, you're in different circles. Like I'm just a guy from Willowdale, but you're all of a sudden in these circles. You're like, what the hell? So it's cool. So we opened, I guess Richard Branson had just opened a Virgin Megastore in Vancouver. So we played at it, the opening. And then there's a little soiree. And so Richard comes over to me and starts talking, hey, great job, what's going on? You start shooting the breeze. And so he goes, so where are you playing? Or where are you off to next? And I go, oh, where are we taking the ferry to Victoria tomorrow? Where are you going, Richard? Oh, I'm flying to Marrakesh to fly a balloon. Oh, really? Nice. Nice. So he goes, you're not going to believe this, but I don't really know Vancouver that well. So what's happening here? Like, what are you going to do tonight? So I said, well, my friends play at a bar called the Roxy, and I'll be going there to hang out and see them. Okay, cool. So, and then we go off and talk to other people and blah, blah, blah. So that night I go to the Roxy, and then all of a sudden, who walks in but Richard Branson? Like, Ian, I made it. What the hell? He says, it's just super, down-to-earth kind of dude.
Yeah.
So, he's like, drinks for everyone, let's go, So it was really fun, too. We had a great time. And then he's like, okay, Ian, I got to go. I'll see you later. All right, see ya. And then, an hour later or so, the owner of the bar goes, you come with me. And he goes, Richard Branson left his American Express card here. You deal with it. So I knew where he was staying. He told me, so I had to go and return it to him. And I'm holding this card, and I'm just thinking, I could probably buy, Indonesia. What country do I want to buy with this thing? You know what I mean? It's like, holy crap. So anyway, he was very thankful. And
So what's the Cheap Trick story? I mean, there must be a Rick Nielsen guitar swap thing going on. What happened there?
We played in Japan, which is awesome. And so I was very excited to play in Japan. And I grew up on the record Cheap Trick live at Budokan, classic. So the whole time, me and the other guitar player, Damien, we were like, we're in Japan. This is awesome, live at Budokan.
Yeah, sure.
So we're like, this is amazing. So there you were given kind of babysitters that would just look after you, make sure you didn't get in trouble, or, it's also because of the language and it's overwhelming. So we had these two kind of handlers or babysitters. So they were taking us around, and then they said, okay, we want to go and meet some other babysitters, and we're going to go to the Hard Rock Cafe. So we go there, and they see their other friends, the other babysitters, and who are they babysitting but Cheap Trick, and Rick Nielsen. So we're like, oh my God, we were just talking about live at Budokan, and here you are. Wow. So they were just the super nicest guys. And then, I invited them to the show, and then they came.
So did you get a chance to talk guitars with Rick? I think he's got one of the world's largest collections. I know he's got a couple, at least, of those 59 Les Pauls.
A little bit of guitars. Yeah. We talked, what do you say? You kind of sound like Farley. Like, that's awesome. So many guitars. That's awesome.
That's true.
Yeah, the Chris Farley thing on Saturday Night Live when he interviews Paul McCartney, he looks at him and goes, so do you remember when you were with the Beatles?
But that was pretty neat. It was pretty cool, the people you'd run into and have on your guest list. I was able to have John Prine on my list, which is pretty cool because we were staying at the same hotel, and he's like, where are you playing? Oh, I'm playing here. Oh, well, I'm playing over there. And so John Prine goes to me, this is what we're going to do. You put me on your list, I'll put you on mine. And if we finish early, one of us will come over. Okay? It's like, great. So that was pretty neat. So
that's pretty cool to have a John Prine story given.
Oh, I know. It was neat just to hang out with that guy because he's a legend,
Your guitar styling is pretty diverse. I mean, just the people you've worked with. Amanda Marshall was kind of a pop, kind of R&B, bluesy type of thing. And then, back with the bass's bass, that was more kind of real kind of dance pop. But then even going back a little further, you did some reggae and some ska. You played with the Sattalites and King Apparatus. Let's dive into that.
Well, again, coming out of college, I just kind of got into the R&B and the reggae scene. And it was great. I had a house gig at the Jerk Pit down right by City TV, which was great. So for the Sattalites, I would just kind of fill in for their regular guitar player when he couldn't do it, and that would happen quite a bit. So that was fun. And then King Apparatus was awesome. It was funny because I was a long-haired freak at that time, even more than now. And they went on tour, so they were all skinheads, and so they'd be all shaved except for me. But it was a weird tour because it was their last tour and they were in the middle of breaking up. So they had to finish this tour. So it was kind of tense. Yeah. But it was great because the crowds just wanted to party. Like, oh my gosh, they were ready to go because that music is high energy. And they were very, very popular. So we, and the songs were like nonstop drinking, like, all right, here we go. So that was a really fun time.
I never grew up on ska, and ska was definitely not a thing in my house. But the weird thing is with that kind of music, there was an English beat album, I think it was called Special Beat Service, and I just recall the fidelity on the thing was just mind-blowing. Like, it was just better than anything I've ever heard. And I had this Sanya Walkman at the time. I think I was only about 10 or 11. And it was just so crystal clear, and I still kind of remember the feeling of listening to it.
Yeah, it's amazing how you have those memories, things that stick out with you.
Yeah, it was just so clear or something. Now that we're talking about it, I might have to Google it. Check it out on Spotify or something.
Yeah.
So let's move on and talk about Susan Aglukark. She had a pretty big career here in Canada. She won awards, and it was another gig you got the guitar chair for. Oh
yeah, Susan Aglukark. Yeah, that was a great gig. Well, at one point there, when Amanda was, I was with Susan first, but I was doing both gigs at once because Amanda had to, it wasn't, she was just doing spot dates here and there, and Susan was doing, little fly-ins here and there, whatever. So it was working out like boom, 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 boom. And then at one point they clashed, and I had to kind of go, okay, I got to make
A couple Junos.
Who, Susan Aglukark? Oh, yeah. That OCM tune was huge.
Yeah.
And that was a fun gig, a great band. Steve O'Connor was a piano player, and Craig Bignell, who got me the gig, drummer. It just killer. And my main job was just, this is a funny story, because Craig is a prankster. So he was musical director. So we did this one tune, and it's, Susan tells great stories about the North and all that kind of thing, and really cool. So I'd have to make kind of wolf sounds and noises, and get on my delays and do all that kind of stuff. It was really fun. So he goes, okay, this is my first gig with him. He goes, okay, at this one point, at the end of the song, I want you to make really big, loud wolf noises and just full-on Arctic mayhem. Okay, well, sure, you're the musical director, I'll do it. So I do it, but Susan has no idea, because all of a sudden it's like, it's over, and then all of a sudden I just start doing all this crazy woo, web, woo kind of stuff, and she's like, what the hell are you doing, And the rest of the band are just on the floor laughing. So then Craig kind of let her know, and then it was funny, but it was like, oh, okay, trial by fire, you're in.
Van Halen dive bombs and kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know how just nice little harmonics and with some whammy and through the echoes and
She had no clue you were going to do
She had no clue. So she looks over like, what the hell? But that was a really fun gig because again I had a lot of freedom. Just to kind of make soundscapes, do that kind of stuff, which is really fun.
So you really spent a lot of years touring, but I guess I'm just thinking of the dates and the time. You must have been pretty young, and it must have probably been one of your first most, serious gigs. But you were part of a legendary thing, which was playing this kind of North Vegas show up at Deerhurst.
Yeah, coming out of Humber, did that.
With Shania Twain before she was Shania Twain.
She was Eileen.
Yeah.
I got that gig and went up there to the Vegas show, and it was cool. Again, she was just Eileen. I had no.
Sure, of course.
I would not be a good A&R person because I did not see the massive star that she would become. Like I just had absolutely no clue that was going to happen. But it was a fun gig. But then they threw a big contract at me and wanted me to stay there for 5 years, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for 5 years. I mean, it's cool, but
how long did you do it for?
I did it for a year, I guess, or so, on and off. Yeah.
So was Eileen Shania in the band for the whole time you were with it?
Yeah, she was the main, one of the main singers, in this thing. Yeah, the thing. You're just in the house band, you do your thing, Well,
you had no idea at the time, but that's.
I had absolutely no idea.
That's a cool story that you're part of it, like a piece of Canadian history, because all those documentaries on Shania, they always spend a little bit of time talking about the hardship of her life. She lost her parents. She had I can't remember 7, 10 brothers and sisters, and she was supporting them all from her salary, playing the show at the Deerhurst, and you were there. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah. So I was there watching her do it, and sing every night. But yeah, I got that gig through two guys I went to school with, Ron Walker and Pete Pereira, who worked there, and they recommended me.
Did anybody that you were playing with kind of say, "Oh, I think something's going to happen with her"?
Oh,
was she average?
She was just another singer in the show. It wasn't like this is, had a massive aura around her or anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that.
It wasn't like a Whitney Houston voice that it came out, right? So
no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you do a little bit of everything. There was a guy that was kind of we do Orange Blossom Special, and then you'd be like, the conga. It was like a review.
Yeah, like a Bon Jovi tune.
Yeah, it was all over the map. Yeah.
let's dive back to the beginning. How did you get involved in music, and how did you get into the guitar? Did family members play? Tell us the story.
Well, it all started like this, Arie. No, for me, I went to St. Mike's Choir School when I was 8. So that was down at Yonge and Dundas, which, looking back, I can't believe my parents let me go to a school at Yonge and Dundas at 8 years old by myself on the subway in Toronto. But those were different days, No, and that was great because we had to take piano lessons. That was mandatory. We would sing. We had a class where we would sight sing every day, and I took pipe organ there, and then they also had classical guitar. So, I guess when I was 10, I, took the classical guitar. And there's a theme, too. There's a lot of left-handed guitar players. I'm another one of them. And my guitar teacher said, I said, I'm left-handed. He said, well, you know what? It's hard to get a left-handed guitar, so you're playing right-handed,
Wow.
So, yeah. So, so I play right-handed. Yeah. So that was a good experience, Classical guitar was my beginning there, and and then kind of like everyone else got into my parents they're pretty young, and they were into Zeppelin and Cream, and so I got into all the British bands, Zeppelin and Cream and Floyd, and then I got into the Three Kings, the blues and all that kind of stuff. They were very encouraging. My folks, they built me a soundproof room in the house, probably for their benefit more than mine, where I could just play along with records. So I remember the first records that I learned to play on, was CCR, that Cosmos Factory, because it was pretty easy, looking back, but you could get it. And as out the Stones, and Lightning Hopkins record too. So those were the big three for me.
We're both a bit younger than Wendell Ferguson, but in my last interview, I don't know if you caught it, but he said basically the same thing, and I even think he was humming a CCR riff. And it was just the idea of when you were young and starting out, you'd pick up a riff that was cool but easy to learn, and then when you played it, you sounded just like the record, and then that just drove you.
It was encouraging. Yeah. So then you keep going, oh, okay, awesome. You just keep building your repertoire. Speaking of Wendell too, that was one of my first recording gigs. I was at Orchard with Wendell. Wendell was there. It was years ago with a band called Humphrey Go-Kart, and we were kind of like reggae-ish, funky kind of stuff, and we did it at Orchard and Wendell was there. I remember it. That's the first time I met him. Full circle, yeah.
So how long were you stuck playing the nylon string classical before you got your first electric?
Probably 2 years at least. I was listening to all that kind of music, but I didn't have one, and then finally my mom got me an Eldegas Les Paul Gold Top.
Cool. And
I still have my classical that I learned on. It was a Raven classical. I still have it. But I sold the Eldegas Les Paul Gold Top, and I regret it.
Was it a challenge at the time, to get an electric and kind of move on from classical? Did you have support or resistance from your folks at the time?
No, they were encouraging. Yeah, they really were. And the stereo that we had like a input jack. Yes. I would play through the stereo. It was hilarious. So I had the guitar a year before I had an amp, just play into the stereo. It was really funny.
I'm laughing because I think I did the same thing. My dad had an old Sony reel-to-reel and had these speakers that clipped off and on. And I think it was 2-track, and I think if you put the 2 red switches down, you plug in something and it would come out the speaker. So I think that's what I was using in my bedroom. But I was also lucky because my dad did have he had a big Music Man 130 that he was using for his Rhodes piano at the time. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, those are good amps.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Music Man amps were so good. The first guy I ever saw with a really good pedal board, and he was a jazz guy. It was Jim Tate in Toronto, and he had 2 music bands in stereo and a pedal board, and that was years, before anyone else kind of was into pedals. It seemed he was a killer player, just amazing. Yeah.
We touched on it earlier, but let's go back to producing. Because I know that's where you spend a lot of your time doing. Do you mostly operate out of your home studio, or are you also doing some production work out of some larger studios?
Yeah, I work. Well, it depends on the budget, right? If the budget allows, you can go in a bigger studio. But these days, and so back in the year when I first started producing, when the budgets were big, especially for record companies, you could go to Morin Heights or you could go to Metalworks and do that stuff. These days, I've got all the gear now that I need that a studio to have. I've got some Neves, I've got some APIs and a booth and all that kind of gear. So we can do a lot of stuff here, and then mix somewhere else. I like to mix, get out of here and mix. Have another engineer kind of go, you're a little too crazy on this. Let's go back, or just kind of be another sounding board. But these days, I mostly do it here. So I just finished one, I finished a record with a guy named Chris Stray, and that was done here. Although we did the drums at Riffs, I thought we'd do it differently. His budget was minuscule, so it was like, okay, how are we going to make this work? So we did the drums with Rick Roach at Riffs, and on a from 8 at night till like 8 in the morning, we did all the drums because the streets were empty, there was no noise, and we set up all the mics and did it right there, which was really fun. Then did everything else here, and then I went to Paul Inson, who's a bass player, amazing film scorer too, and amazing musician. So we mixed it at his place. Did that there. But then a record before that I did with Lee Palmer, and that was almost live, pretty much live off the floor, and that was at Jukasa Studios, owned by Khaled, I guess, or not Khaled, Caledonia.
Yeah, out in Caledonia, it's on a reserve, right? I think across the street, it's the owner's house, which has got these giant walls. I think he's in the tobacco business. Anyway, place is just gorgeous. I mean, I think it's got that legendary SSL board from Abbey Road in it. Yeah, beautiful place.
Amazing. And well, it worked out for us because you had individual booths that everyone could see each other.
Yeah,
do it all live, and great players, and Steve O'Connor again, who I hadn't seen since Susan Aglukark, so it was really good to see him again. And Sean O'Grady was the drummer.
Oh boy, Sean O'Grady pops up in every video I do.
Sean O'Grady, I know, funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like play drums with everybody.
Legendary.
And I think John Diamond was playing bass on that thing too, right? No, it was
Alex Fraser. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad about Lee. I know he didn't.
Yeah, that was very sad. It came out, and then pretty much he passed just after it came out. He didn't really get to promote it too much or anything, which really sucks.
You also had, and I've seen him up with Lou, an incredible harmonica player. We should give a shout out to him. Anyway, the recordings there were great. I remember when he was posting them, I was blown away.
Rolly Platt, yeah. Well, yeah, Darren, the engineer there, was really good.
Yeah.
And then after it was done, we just went, I came here, did little tweaks, and then went back there and we mixed it, Darren and I, and it was, turned out good.
Yeah, and you played all the guitar, right?
Yeah, it was great. And Lee I met at a jam night. This is where you never know who you're going to meet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He just came. He just moved to Woodstock from Toronto and said, "Oh, where's the music?" and came there, and then he started jamming with us. The Soul Tripper gig, yeah.
So a little bit of outside of music, but still extremely creative. You're also a professional photographer. That sparked my interest because I dabbled in that for a while myself. Tell us about that. I find there's a good connection between musicians and photography.
So it's good. I do fine art stuff and portraiture, and I just did the warden of this area, so that now hangs in the courthouse, which is pretty cool. So that'll be there forever, long past when I'm gone, it'll still be there, which is pretty neat. And yeah, you know, a little bit of fashion stuff and, you know, industrial, whatever comes.
When did you get into that?
I was doing that, you know, same thing as a kid too. I would, you know, I had the little camera with the cube flash on the, you know, those little cubey things. Remember those?
Yeah. So you started with film. You didn't.
Yeah, film and the whole bit. Yeah. So, and then developing and all that stuff. It's amazing how many musicians are photographers too.
Yeah, you're right about that. I remember watching a little interview with Duke Robillard. He's a blues guitarist, and I met him at the Silver Dollar quite a number of years ago when I was doing photography there. And we were chatting, and yeah, he's huge into photography.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's got some really good photography stuff that he's done over the years.
And Andy Summers from the Police too.
Yeah. Something about maybe guitar or maybe it's just music. It's just that.
Yeah. I find you're able to be creative, but you know when you don't, you know, you need to put the guitar down, but you can still want to be creative. You know, you have another outlet, which is really good.
Yeah.
So Iain, this series I started is called Guitar Players in Isolation. So we can't leave it without getting into gear. So tell us about you know, some of your favorite guitars.
Well, my favorite guitar is probably this one, my 335.
Yeah, cool.
Here it is. Voila. Because I bought it brand new when I was 16.
Oh, wow, good for you.
Yeah, and I bought it black because I was right into B.B. King, but at the same time I was also into Larry Carlton big time.
Sure.
So it was like a 335, but it looks like B.B. King's guitar. So that's. You know, so I went down to Lon McQuaid on, you know, Bloor and Spadina there. Took it right out of the box, and that was it. I love that guitar. So yeah, great.
Like
and then this is my main workhorse guitar, Eric Clapton. You got one of those?
I think it almost mine's slightly darker. It depends on the camera. This could be.
That's pewter. This is that pewter finish.
I don't know what the hell you call this, but it could. I'm wondering if it's just the different cameras, the
Could
different
be.
cams.
Yeah, because this is come with that silver. You know, that silver pewter.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a sparkle in it.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, and then it's got those. I have those lace sensors.
Oh yeah, I took them out.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's almost the same guitar. Jeez, I wonder. What's the serial number on yours?
904614. SE.
Mine's like E8122. Anyway, they're so
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I think I got that one in '87.
Really?
Yeah, just kind of like, whoa, that's kind of like mine.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Sorry, go back and tell us about it, because you.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just it's the workhorse guitar. I use it. It's the most, Strats are so versatile. So on a funk gig, I can bring it. On a jazz gig, I can bring it. On any kind of gig, you can make it.
And you never swapped out the lace sensors on it, eh?
No, in fact, no. I don't mind them. You don't like them, eh?
No, it was just something, at that time it was like, oh, you got to swap these out, like.
Oh, okay. No, I kept them, and then actually I just replaced them with a new set.
You.
Yeah.
Did that one have the roller nut on it or just a regular nut?
Just a regular nut.
Yeah, so I think it is a similar one. Yeah.
It's got that mid-range boost thing, the Clapton, the woman tone.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
And then this is my telly.
Okay.
And it's made by Mike Kinnell. Yeah.
Familiar with
You know him? Do you know him? He's out west.
Okay.
Builder. And actually, when I was on tour with Amanda, I wanted to buy a nice telly. So I went down to Manny's, that whole strip in New York, and was like, I'm buying a telly. And I couldn't find one that really I liked. believe it or not. So I happened to be in this mom and pop music store in Victoria and saw those and really liked it. And it's a great sounding guitar.
Wow.
I've had that for 20 years probably.
Good for you.
And it's number 22. Yeah, and it's got like a lipstick kind of pickup there. It's kind of cool.
Hard to see with the lighting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it is it's what was that? What was the name of those guitars that did the baritones?
Oh, like Dan Electro or Jerry Jones or whatever.
Jones, yeah. Oh, very interesting. Does it have a different sound than a normal stock Tele neck pickup?
Yeah, it's got all those sounds. Yeah, it's great.
Oh.
So, I'm not a chicken picker, but for me, for the kind of, jangly kind of stuff that I use it for, it's a great guitar. I love it. And for funky stuff and, killer. Yep. Oh, yeah, similar to this one. I have one of those. There's one of the Silvertone.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so that one's got comes with an amp in the case, right?
Yeah.
Like an 8-watt tube amp.
Do you use slide?
Oh, yeah, for slide, it's awesome. It's just great.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so I love that guitar.
Oh, I see. You even have like a Wurlitzer in the background there.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's the real thing, yeah.
Awesome. You do some Supertramp tunes?
Oh, yeah, all of it, yeah. Fantastic. It's great.
Yeah.
And Plexi Marshall over there.
Yeah. Okay.
From the 70s. And Super Reverb over there.
Those are
And
wonderful.
then my main recording amp is a Matchless, one of those DC-30s, which is just awesome. But I ordered it directly from Long McQuaid.
Yeah. I forget.
Long McQuaid should have a wing dedicated to me for the amount of money I've spent on there.
That's pretty cool that your main amp is a Matchless, because I recall a guitar rig rundown, Premier Guitar, on Brent Mason, and he points to his stack of amps, and he's got a Matchless 30, and he's talking about the Samson era. So I'm guessing that's kind of where the time frame of yours. But he got his first Matchless when he recorded Shania Twain's first record. So that kind of goes back to your whole Deerhurst thing. Kind of cool.
Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, that's because I know after they sold the company or something that happened, and yeah.
Very cool.
Killer amp. And then I use it for live gigs, for riffs and stuff. I'll use a PV, one of those Delta 15s.
Okay.
Which is a great amp. Love it. And it's nice and light too, which is also very good. I'm starting to buy amps by weight now.
I use a Princeton Reverb a lot.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
I mean, actually, my band prefers when I use that amp.
Like that?
It's a little quieter, but sometimes I feel like that the Lex is lonely, so I bring that one, and
right.
That one's gets a little loud at that number you got to set it at,
So Iain, this has been great. Really appreciate the time you're spending with us. It's always great to be able to talk to somebody who's had these experiences, like you and some of my other guests that have played the large stages. I mean, there's, out of the total number of guitar players out there that are great players, there's a very small percentage of those that get the opportunities like you did. So it's always great to hear guys like you share the stories. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what advice you'd give to new players that are trying to get into the session work, the recording work, given that you've done lots of sessions and you got the producing experience.
It comes down to listening, really. I mean, that's the best kind of chops you can have is your listening chops. Knowing when not to play is just as important as knowing what to play, or when to lay out, because I've done sessions where it's like, what, I could play on this track, but I don't know if you need it. I mean, I'll play if you want me to, but it's awesome as it is. So let's not do something on it. Like, just because we can doesn't mean we should, or so just having that, just knowing when not to play and listening to the whole band, not just listening to yourself, but listening to the hi-hat, listening to the kick, to the bass player, his, melodic and rhythmic stuff, and,
A lot of interviews that I've seen with, great players, really experienced guys, they always kind of say, you got to play for the song, and you can't always be, playing, trying to show off everything you can do to impress people. And I suspect that just comes with maturity, and confidence within yourself, that you don't have to always show everybody what you can do. Do you recall in your career kind of a point where you kind of switched over, where it's like, I don't really need to show off, I just need to do what's right for the song?
It wasn't like a light bulb moment, but I think over time, as you learn, or as you play with more people, you learn, and you're taking in comments from other people, or reading articles in Guitar Player magazine, whatever you're doing, you kind of like come to that conclusion. And I'll read articles like, John Schofield saying, like, I can't listen to my early stuff, I suck, and I'm like, you're John Schofield, you're it's ridiculous. But, even someone like him grew over time, and I think that just happens. I think it's a maturity thing. I've never been a massive chop person anyways. That's not really my thing, but I don't know. It's always ingrained into me to play the song. That always, and maybe it's coming from classical music too. You're just part of the cog in a wheel, that kind of thing. Also playing a lot of reggae music. That's all. That's my favorite thing to do. Is just go, just play a little funk music too. You might just go cha cha.
Yeah, that's a good point. Given your background, kind of playing the ska and the funk stuff. I mean, it's not. The guitar roll there is really rhythm and supporting the groove. It wasn't about showing off licks. So that probably gave you a really good foundation to do what's right for the song.
Yeah. And, I grew up playing, listening to the blues guys, B.B. King and all those guys, and Miles Davis. I grew up listening to Miles Davis, and it's all about space for those guys, and it's all about meaning what you play and paring it down, and just trying to leave the essentials. And I'm still trying to do that, All
right. Thanks, Iain. Really appreciate your time. It's been great talking to you. And like I've asked all my other guests, is to play a lick in isolation. So share with us a cool lick idea and a brief explanation. And thanks again.
Hey, it's Iain. How's it going? I'm doing the lick of the week, and this is a G half whole diminished lick over 2-5-1 in C, so D minor 7, G7, C major 7. You can also play it over G7 the whole time, B flat 7, D flat 7, E7, if you like it. Also, I'm choosing to play it kind of on these top 3 strings, but there's all sorts of places you can play it. All right, here is a half whole scale to start. Okay, and here's the lick. Slow down. You can also go up the neck with that pattern, playing the D, G half whole diminished. All right, enjoy. And thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm honored to be on this list of people.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I'm thankful that you joined us. You came with a great recommendation. It's great. There's so much talent in this area. I've got some other guys that I'm hoping to do, and it's like, just a laundry list of big name artists they played with, and I had no idea.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Iain, and hopefully this passes, and I'll be out to come out and see the Soul Tripper, or I'll come out to see Iain and Friends.
That'd be amazing. I'd love to see you out there. It'd be great.
All right, great. All right, take care, man.
You too. Bye.
Well, that was Iain McNally, another great interview. Another great player in the Southern Ontario area. If you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you subscribe. And feel free to check out the other videos. I've interviewed guys like Sil Simone, Paul Chapman, Fred Lewis, Gino Del Sol, Wendell Ferguson, Steve Petico, and I've got more to interview. So hit the bell notification button, because if you do that, you'll get an email the next time I load a video. I'm trying to do one a week, so enjoy this one and check back, and there'll be another one. All right, take care.